तो सुनते रहिए सलाम पीसीआर।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम प्यारे दोस्तों, मैं सखावत नाज ते सुनते रहो सलाम बीसीआर।
Want to be on radio? Then log into our website www.project29.org.uk and email me Aidan for more details.
जरूरत है मकान या फ्लैट किराए के लिए। अटेंशन लैंडलॉर्ड्स एंड टेनेंट्स, अगर आप अपना मकान या फ्लैट किराए पर देना चाहते हैं तो आज ही सलाम बीसीआर की टीम से राब्ता कीजिए। मजीद मालूमात के लिए इस नंबर पर व्हाट्सएप मैसेज करें या कॉल 0791-262-2961। नंबर याद रहे 0791-262-2961। हाँ, वी कवर ऑल एरियाज अक्रॉस ग्रेटर मैनचेस्टर।
हमारा मिशन अल्लाह की रज़ा, मोहम्मद से वफा, पाकिस्तान का दिफा। हम हैं सलाम बीसीआर।
मैं हनी अलबेला, सुनते रहिए सलाम बीसीआर।
This is Salam BCR and welcome back after the break for Asr Azan, and the time now in the studio is 4:19 exactly. Whatever you may be, welcome and thank you for joining us. I have my guest and friend Udan Prasad, the film director whom I had the pleasure of working with a lifetime back, and here we are, was in the studio. Hi Udan, welcome back.
Hi, great to be back.
Then when we just left, you were telling us about the training that the BBC were providing for. Was that people from ethnic backgrounds primarily, or was it overall?
No, not at all. That kind of thinking just didn't exist in those days.
Right.
In fact, there was a period when people of color or people from ethnic minorities backgrounds were sort of expected only to direct shows which were about other people from ethnic minority backgrounds. In fact, the very first job I did was a series on artists from who lived and worked in Britain, but who were not white.
Right.
So the producer was really keen. He really liked my graduation film from the National Film School. He said, "Oh, it's a terrific film. I'd love you to do this." And he said, "The thing is, you're going to have to wait because at the moment we're doing we're doing a show which is all about artists from the Caribbean background." I thought, yeah, I wanted to say to him, look, it doesn't matter what the color of the person is standing in front of the camera, I'm standing behind. There will be a picture, honestly. Because I'm South Asian, it doesn't mean only South Asians should stand in front of the camera. So it was, excuse me for using this expression, it's what I called the no packy, no picture syndrome.
Yeah.
And you have to say to people, look, just tell the story. It doesn't matter. If I can tell the stories, you can tell stories, we can each tell stories, and they don't have to be defined so rigidly about what kind of stories we can direct or tell. So there was this attitude, and women had the same problem. Women could only make documentaries or films about the menopause, about childbirth, and issues like this. So it was a ridiculous attitude, but ingrained over centuries of colonialism and all that kind of stuff. All those attitudes had led us to this point. And then the change started to happen because people demanded it. People said, wait a minute, hang on, this is ridiculous, And then and that's what led to now, luckily, fortunately, not enough, but many more people of all backgrounds, all ethnicities are directing and telling stories with people in front of the camera of equally varied ethnicities and backgrounds. So the world is changing thank goodness. It's taken a long time. So the Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, all those kind of pressure groups, uh, they haven't suddenly appeared. Those kind of pressure groups are always there, but it took a long time and constantly hammering away and hammering away and hammering away until it took off in a bigger way. And now I think producers, commissioners, and so on, are much more open to people, are able to look at the work of an actor, of a director, of a writer, and say, do I like the story? It doesn't matter where they've come from, but are they telling a really interesting story in a really interesting way? And then we can work. But that was not the case. So it was that conversation with Hanif that Hanif had with the commissioner from the BBC Midlands that led to me doing that course. On that course, I was the only person of colour.
Right.
All the others were white. Some people were staff at the BBC. There was one or two were not with the BBC, but most were from the BBC. And we were taught things like how to shoot soaps, so multi-camera studio setups and so on. And the weird thing was I made my things on the course, and I've never directed multi-camera studio stuff at all, because I've always ended up doing single camera dramas subsequently.
So Brothers in Trouble.
Well, Brothers in Trouble was an idea that I came across way before I did the course.
Right.
I was doing a documentary. I was doing actually a corner of a foreign field. And I was working with this wonderful, wonderful journalist who was in exile from Zia-ul-Haq's regime, called Hamraz Hassan.
Okay.
Hamraz is still around. He used to write for Dawn newspaper.
Right.
And Hamraz was the researcher and co-producer on Corner of a Foreign Field.
Is that available somewhere on YouTube or whatever?
I'm sure you'll find him somewhere.
No,
and
this film.
He considers himself a Sufi. And
no, this film I'm talking about, this film that you did.
So what happened was that he said to me, look, it was also at a time when in the cinemas, there were all these, and on TV, there were all these programs about the Brits in India.
Goodness
Passage to India, this and that and the other. It was all also about the British, lording it over in India. And he said, look, there's a whole history, 200 odd year history of people from the subcontinent coming to Britain and writing about the British in Britain. So we said, let's make a documentary about that.
Right.
So we did that. We did that documentary for Arena, BBC's Arena, because there was a wonderful producer there who was very open to these ideas. And then, so we looked at the work of people like Mirza Abu Talib, who came here in the late 1700s and wrote about he wrote a Safarnama. And so, we started with things like that. And then Hamraz said, look, there's a more contemporary novel here. He said, it's been written by a chap called Abdullah Hussain, who actually lives in London. So, and it's about illegal immigrants. So I said to Hamraz, okay, it was written in Urdu. I can't read Urdu. I can read Hindi, but not Urdu. So I said, look, they sound the same. You read it, I'll translate into English. By the time he got to the end of the first chapter, I said to myself, I've got to make this a movie.
Right.
And that was Brothers in Trouble.
Ah, okay.
It was actually called, the book is called Wapsi Ka Safar by Abdullah Hussain. Do you know about Abdullah?
No, I remember you.
Abdullah Hussain died a few years ago, but a great writer.
Right.
Really one of a literary figure of Pakistani literature. You can't ignore him. And what was amazing was, I had lived in Clapham in South London briefly for about a year. Actually, I met my wife there, and we used to Hamraz said, look, he's in Clapham. Shall we go? Do you want to go and meet him? So I said, absolutely, let's go and meet him. And he said he runs an off license. I says, really? So we drove to the off license where I used to go to buy stuff.
Right.
I walked through the door, and he said, "Oh, you look familiar." I said, "Yeah, I was one of your customers." And so that was how we met.
Right, right.
And a wonderful man. And actually, we actually met him to interview him about the book, and then for the book, which we called Invisible Ink for Arena, the program we made for Arena. And I said to Abdullah then, I said, "Listen, you've written a wonderful novel. I'd like to make it into a feature film." And he said, "Absolutely, go ahead." And it was an 8-year journey after that. It took 8 years to get it off the ground.
Right. Well, now, then as an actor, I mean, obviously, a lot of the time, as you said, 70-80% of the actors are unemployed doing other stuff. And then there's probably 15-20% who, get jobs, but they have to, in order to sustain themselves, find. What was your kind of, I know you said your family was reasonably well to do, and like Rishi Sunak, his family, they were all right and sent him to all the.
Oh no, we had none of that, because my parents, they, as I said, they didn't touch the family wealth at all. We were completely self-sufficient.
Right.
So there was my parents couldn't pay for it. My mother was dead. My father couldn't have paid for. He just didn't get that kind of a wage.
Right.
He lived in a small place in a kind of a lower middle class, working class area of North London, and it was fairly frugal living. So and I saw my way through college through grants. Those are the days when you still got student grants,
from your local council and so forth.
And then you supplemented that by working in the holidays and wherever you could. And that's how I did it. But what I had was the undying support for whatever I wanted to do from all my family. If you want to do it, go ahead. We'd love to be able to help you financially, but we can't. And I knew that. So I just had to find the money in any way I could to achieve my ambitions.
So, I mean, so obviously difficult. And then were you financially self-sustaining when you got married, or was that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh right,
I mean,
okay.
Before then, in fact, I was financially self-sufficient from the time I was a student. Really.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah. Now I would work I'd work in factories, on building sites, do all that kind of stuff.
Sustaining, but I mean, with the passion of the work that you really actually wanted to do, which was your.
Yeah, always. That was always the target. I always knew what I wanted to do, but I also knew I had to eat and have a roof over my head and all those things.
So those hard
times. And then I got
those hard times. Because what I'm trying to get is, some of our listeners, young people, because, they think, like Mida Sial's film, life is all ha-ha, hee-hee. Life isn't all ha-ha, hee-hee. There are a lot of hard times. Because just to say, it was 92, Udayan, when actually, 94 actually, I made the conscientious decision. I was either going to starve or I was going to make it in this profession. Before that, I was dilly-dallying, in and out after leaving school in 85. Leaving Lambda, coming out, and then it was because I had a wine bar and a snooker club running. A Muslim boy running a wine bar and a snooker club, again against parents' wishes. So as I said, I made that decision, and it paid off. There was a lot of times unemployed, but I didn't take anything else. I wouldn't do anything else. And
I did something very similar, because initially after art school, I went into the film industry as an assistant editor. I worked as an assistant editor. That kept me going. And then when I got to the National Film School, I didn't get a grant then, so I worked as a camera assistant. So what you could do was, you could work with camera assisting. You can get 1-day jobs or 2-day jobs, 3-day, maybe a week, and that would keep you going for a month, 2 months, something like that. So that's what I would do. But once I graduated, I said to myself, right, you're not going back to editing, to being an assistant, anything. You're just going to keep pushing for directing. you know. And I'd managed to save up enough just to see me through things. Of course, I ended up having to do some other work. Of
Yes.
course I did.
Yes.
But you know, there was no bank of mum and dad or anything like that to sustain me at all. You know, and yeah, I mean, you can say yes, of course you have to grit your teeth and do it, but at the same time, you know, if you're a storyteller, if that's what you want to do, there are stories in every branch of life.
Surely.
So there, you know, you sort of just, you have to just live there and see and observe and learn things from people. You never stop learning. That's what's so great about what you know, what I think I do.
Because you know, when I look back at a number of the people that I knew from drama school, and you know, I mean, when I finished drama school, I came straight back up north. I didn't like London. I didn't want to live in London. I've had the opportunities since, and I don't like London. Full stop. You know, I like country life. I like, you know, villages and that kind of stuff. I'm a Pindu. You know, I'm a villager. And I tell on my radio, I come from a village from Pakistan, and I like to live here in a village. You know, it's just nice. But a lot of people, you know, they as you said, you know, having to supplement, take other jobs, and so many people have actually left the profession. You know, not only ethnic. I mean, being an ethnic in those days, you know, the amount of work available, limited. You know, very limited. But as a director, as you said, you know, the opportunity was that you didn't have to be of the same ilk or the same ethnicity or whatever as the people in front of the camera. You know, so you could be whoever as long as the thought fitted. So that was probably a positive in that respect, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing was, as I said, I too had the illness for which there was no cure. I just couldn't think what I didn't want to do anything else. I still don't.
No.
I'm very, and I wasn't going to let I don't see why people I regarded as bozos should rule my life. I wasn't going to take no for an answer. I was just going to, okay, you said no, fine. There's another door to knock on, and I'll keep knocking on the doors until one opens. And that was my attitude. And I hope it still is, you know.
So what do you see from, I mean, from the journey? You've been back to India. You did some directing there. How was that?
That was amazing. It was a long time before I got there, and you sort of learn all sorts of things. You forget what a noisy place, you know, how Indians and Pakistanis are such noisy people. Nobody can drive without a hand on the horn, you know, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's so rich. It's a great story. It's called Selection Day, available on Netflix for anyone who wants to watch it, and it's about a father. It was about two boys, actually, whose father decided that he was going to produce or manufacture or engineer two of the greatest cricketers in the world. So he chose his wife, who produced two kids, got rid of her, and then just insisted they play cricket. And of course, one of them was happy to do that, and the other one absolutely hated it. He hated cricket, but the problem was he was the more talented of the two.
Right.
So it's a look. I mean, you know, that situation is nothing new. It connects to stories around the world. If it's not cricket, it's soccer.
Sorry,
it's
Ronaldo.
Something else.
Ronaldo is of that because he wasn't married. The son that he has, Ronaldo, who plays now for Manchester United, you know, the Portuguese player.
Yeah,
that's what he did. You know, he got a surrogate woman to bear a child for him, and the first son that he has is like that, actually. So these two kids, was that a real story, or was that just something?
It's based on a novel written by Arvind Diga, who wrote a fantastic Booker Prize winning book called White Tiger, which was just absolutely brilliant. And this is called Selection Day, and it's about, you know, kids and parents and sport.
So what happened with the boys?
And it's about who chooses who chooses your destiny? That's what the question is, you know. Right. And there was one series, and it really needed three. But with all these things, Netflix was expanding at a rate of you know, at the speed of light at the time, or so it seemed. And then, but new people came in, and they decided they didn't want to continue with the series. But I'm very, very proud of that stuff. And we you know, there's such talent there.
Right.
great actors, wonderful crews, a lot of people on set. I mean, it's kind of, I've shot in America, I've shot here, but I've never had that many people on my crew, like literally in the hundreds. And you sort of think, what are they all doing?
I mean, I suppose it's economics, isn't it? It's cheaper to employ. That must be one of the reasons. So then,
yeah, I guess so.
feed many mouths rather than just be elitist. I suppose in a way I think that's really good. That people.
Yeah, no, I have no objection to it at all, as long as it doesn't slow things down and I can still get things in on budget and schedule.
Yeah. We're pushing for time. So what in your life till now, what would you say has been your best achievement that you're really very proud of, or has there been many?
My family, my children, my wife.
MashaAllah.
All of that. Everything else pales into insignificance, really. I mean, we have two wonderful children.
Yes.
And they still want to go out to the restaurant or to a pub with us. I think, well, couldn't have done too bad a job there if they still want to see us.
Absolutely. And they're both actors, aren't they?
Sorry, they're both stupid like me, like their dad, and they've gone into the entertainment industry. And
did they actually? I mean, I know, you've obviously been very fortunate in that, you've made a good career for yourself in coming along in the direction. I mean, sometimes people say to their kids, oh God, no, the difficulties. Did ever that kind of situation arise?
No, I just came out with my standard reply. I said, look, I gave them the facts, the statistics, the 70% and after 30%, only 6%. And I told them, if you've got the disease and for which there's no cure, then the worst thing you can do is to play it safe and live the rest of your life regretting that you never gave it a shot.
Fantastic.
And so do whatever. We'll always back you. Whatever you do, we will always be here to support you. And that's what we did.
I just on a personal note, then and I recall it often. I've never considered acting, going to no matter what time it was, night shoot, day shoot, 16-hour, whatever it was. I've never thought of it as work. It's never,
no, not as a chore. No, that's
never
right.
Chore, work, whatever. It never. It's always been a pleasure to just go and do it, and never been about the money. I remember saying to my agent once, because they said, they often send you up for these little corner shop roles, shaking the head, the type. And I said, look, it either has to have good. If it's going to be one of those one-sceners, it better have a lot of bloody good money, okay, or else. I'm not bothered about the money as long as the character, it doesn't matter what the character is, as long as it's a nice character. It must serve some purpose. And just to turn up just doing it for the sake of it, as a tick box situation, I would have never done it, and I never have done it, to be quite honest. And so, finishing off, we could carry on.
I mean, there's Liz Truss to talk about. For goodness sake!
Exactly. I mean, what's happened there? Okay, let's tie that one up. Who do you see next? Now, I mean, that's tragedy for her, for the girl, isn't it?
Well, you're talking about making a horror movie here right now.
5 weeks.
Anwar, for goodness sake! I mean, what a nightmare life has been in the last few years. I mean, if the pandemic wasn't bad enough, this is another one. And goodness only knows what's going on. I'm sure somebody's already writing the script, actually,
Who do you think will fill the even if as a part-time? Do you think they'll have a part-timer, or they'll think somebody bring in?
I just had a look in our break, and the majority of the MPs want Boris back. Can you imagine?
You see?
Can you imagine a man who had to resign because of appalling behavior in disgrace is now the favorite to come back? Sunak, of course, is still there.
Rishi? Why not Rishi? Then come on, let's forget the the correct.
Well, you see, the thing is, I'll be quite straightforward. I have no time for their policies, and for this simple reason, is that they lack basic humanity. And I can disagree with people that many of my friends have political views which are different to mine, but I, at least there is an idea of what is humanity. What is it? How do you care for people? The methodology can be different.
Yes.
But the moment, how can you elect someone who wants to put more money in the pockets of already wealthy people than people who are desperate for their next meal? I just don't understand that. I just don't understand it. And I don't understand how dehumanizing people who are risking their lives for their families by trying to flee either severe economic problems, and even worse, conflict, from poor places who've risked all.
Yes.
How can you demonize these people?
Yes.
They're human beings.
Yes.
And so if anyone is going to say, like Braverman did, and like Sunak even said, we're not having them, we're going to fly them to Rwanda. It's very difficult for me to get enthusiastic about people like that, really.
And you'd think that these are people, because Miss, what was her name, Patel, Priti Patel, being an immigrant from Uganda, when Idi Amin threw them out, to come here as an immigrant, and then to have, I find that really, I haven't got the words for it. It's just sad that they can't understand other people's situation who might want to be doing that same. Although I don't agree with the means. But their plight. I mean, look at Somalia just right now. Children dying in front of their parents because they haven't got the food. How sad is that?
Yes, I mean, that's what I mean. It's about basic humanity. I'm not saying just open all the doors and just fly everyone over. I'm not saying that for a moment.
No.
But let's just look at what's going on.
Yes.
It's not unique to us.
No.
Where would you rather be, London, or would you rather be in Kiev? Or would you be, where would you, so,
yeah, mate. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not the lack of humanity is not peculiar to what's happening here.
Yes.
This seems to pervade the world at the moment. Maybe maybe it was always there, but maybe we didn't have the media coverage that we do now. But I mean, I look around and I find it very difficult to look at a political figure and say, well, there's an inspiring figure. There's a person of true integrity. How many can you name? The last person I could have named was Mandela, and Mandela has gone. And who has replaced? Who in the world can we look at and say, okay, here's a person who is both astute politically, is able to do things, but has that integrity and is has humanity. I struggle when I'm trying to come up with
politically
names.
astute, maybe not. But I and this is not because it's from Imran Khan. I find the other two values in him, Udain. I find the other two. Politically, he's not astute. Made a lot of mistakes. But again, with the limited resource and the corrupt people, people always say, what is he? He's brought these people in his party. And I always say, the pond is dirty. The pond that he's inherited is dirty. And he's only had to, pick from there what's he got. He's the only one. That I find at this moment in time. I was thinking about, here in our country here, I can't look at one person that I see leadership qualities in, my friend. I really dread to think what we're going to be ending up with.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I haven't followed the fortunes of what's been happening to Imran Khan recently. There's been enough going on in India to turn my hair even grayer than it already is.
Silver fox. I was looking at silver fox. Yes.
But but yes, it's a struggle. I think I can disagree with people, but if they lack humanity, then it becomes very difficult to know what kind of a conversation we can have.
Yes.
And when you stop talking, then the problems really go out of control.
Yes. Well, Diane, it's been a pleasure. We could carry on, my friend, and hopefully in another year or two or whatever, we might have a chat again. It's been a pleasure, and I thank you absolutely wholeheartedly. And
it's been my pleasure, Anwar. It's been great to see you again, albeit online.
Be blessed, my friend, and we'll speak soon.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. There we are, people. There was my friend Udayan Prasad from London, film director and writer, script writer. So there's history there. So if you want to see any of his work, as he said, there's two of the films that I was in, Brothers in Trouble and My Son the Fanatic. And My Son the Fanatic was a Hanif Qureshi movie. And as he said, yes, we're going to